going on here. Those of you who are jumping on, yep, I got it. Those of you who are jumping on later, you'll be able to catch up. And always, these Zoom videos are on the back end for members, and they live there forever. So there's that and a lot of other content. So if you've not plugged into the back end or looked into your back office a little bit, I urge you to go exploring. Also, book recommendations. And after tonight's call, I imagine between Jim and myself, we might be adding some other reference materials. I started thinking about that today. So tonight's category, our value is inspire. So my goal is hopefully to inspire you to dig a little bit deeper into really the things that you do every day without thinking about them, the things you do out of habit, the things you do just because you learn behavior, for example, whether it's at home, in the office, or whatever. So the value is under inspire, but the topic is physical health, diet, drugs, alcohol, and vices. Gosh, could I get it all in there? What a broad topic. So a couple of quotes first, because we always want to start with something from someone else, from somewhere else, just so that we all can get grounded on the same page. And this first one is from Harry Johnson. I have no idea who Harry Johnson is, but I'll give him the credit. It says, the human body has been designed to resist an infinite number of changes and attacks brought about by its environment. The secret of good health lies in successful adjustment to changing stresses on the body. And I will be diving into that later from a doctor's point of view. My next one is, to keep the body in good health is a duty. Otherwise, we shall not be able to keep the mind strong and clear. And Jim, I know you can speak to this later on 75 Hard, and I have my own experiences when you're running on all 10. Physically, your mind is definitely sharper. And lastly, I went to the Hippocratic Oath, which we all know starts with, do no harm, or that's what we've been taught. So going to the Greek on the Hippocratic Oath, the literal translation says it this way for a doctor or somebody in the medical field: I will apply dietetic and lifestyle measures to help the sick to my best ability and judgment. I will protect them from harm and injustice. So think about this. We're not talking big pharma. We are talking centuries ago where they're talking about dietetic and lifestyle measures to help the sick. All right. And that's kind of the point that I'm going to lean on tonight from my own personal experiences, as you will see. And I will say at one point in my life, I was in tip-top prime shape, physically, mentally, the whole works. And I still think of myself that way because I think it was when I was in the military and probably one of the advanced programs like airborne school. And I was invincible. I had a body like Adonis, I was ripped and I could run forever. And it just, I felt good. And I was on the top of my game. And I still have that mentally. And I know I have muscle memory of that. My bones still remember that. And I have gotten myself in trouble, especially when my boys became strapping young teenagers and we still wrestled. And I would take them on 2 at a time. And they were by then twice my size and sent me to the chiropractor a time or two when I couldn't move afterward. But, it's one of those things. What we have in our mind is something that we can rely on. So if you're still young now, or if you were young and physically fit at your prime, think about that. Think about that time and get your mindset on that, because it's not that far away. We can always get it back, some of it. So under this first category of physical, and I'm not going to spend all my time on this one because honestly, my whole point is I think people need to do something. I don't care what that something is for you, but you need to do something physical that you feel good about doing. And if you feel good about doing it, you will do it on a regular basis. And you need to find your own motivation for that. Jim knows this about me. I'm not a gym rat. I don't get endorphins when I run. I get a second wind, but I don't get the endorphin rush. I don't get the endorphin high. I get bored by pumping iron or running on a treadmill. I'll chase a football around all day, rugby, hockey, baseball, frisbees. I will do all kinds of physical stuff, and I will do it to the point of exhaustion, but I won't do it in a gym. That's just my mindset. So whatever your physical is, find out what it is and tap into it and just do it regularly. All right. If you have physical challenges, if you have injuries, if you have trouble with motivation, or you're not sure, you don't want to injure yourself, then hire a coach, get a personal trainer, and have them get you started on the right track. There are people that can do a much better job than I, or probably anyone on this call, who make it a profession to do it and do it properly. So if you need the help, ask for it. And I don't care what that area is. If in this case, in physical, do it. If you're recovering from injuries, and I can tell you, you learn a lot going through rehab. You learn a lot about how to take care of your body for future stuff so you don't injure it. And so I'm a real big fan of using equipment, the moving men straps if you're moving heavy equipment, dollies. Make sure you have plenty of help and assistance. Don't overdo it. Don't still think you're that 20 Adonis invincible person and can do it yourself. So make sure you're doing the responsible thing and asking for help, using the right equipment. And the next thing is intentional recreation. You know, in the summertime, we live in Northwest Montana, where our season changes are abrupt and severe. And so what we might be doing on a regular basis and be at the top of our game physically can suddenly and certainly change. And so you have to adjust for that. So even if you're great and you can get back in your good shape, find something to do in the off season that will keep you on a higher level, just so that you're not having to make up for it. That'll help with injuries and stuff as well. And lastly, on the physical part, and I'm real big on this, sleep and rest. And that's so important. It's as important to get the right amount of rest for your muscles to recover, for you mentally to recharge, to refocus, and I think more importantly, just to reduce the stress. Disengage your mind from everything that you're doing. And if you're having trouble with that, there are some natural holistic sleep aids you can use that aren't addictive or harmful. So look into it. But again, having more physical activity and changing your diet can definitely make a difference with your sleep pattern. So track it, do your own sleep log, and see where you end up. I want to bounce off real quick, and I looked up life expectancies today because I know there's been an abrupt change in life expectancy, but I wanted to kind of keep this real. So I looked at it in 1890, and Montana became a state in 1889. So I thought, when our state became a state, how old were people living? 44 and a half years. That was life expectancy. 44 and a half years. That's it's almost hard to imagine. In 1950, it had jumped to 67 and a quarter years. By 1985, it had jumped to 74.37 years. And in 2015, and it's been stable pretty much ever since. It's dropped a little bit in the last year, but 2015 and on, we're looking at 78.94 years. Now that's averaging men and women. I didn't break it down separately. Women tend to last longer than men. So if you're a woman out there listening in on this call, chances are you're going to outlast us. Interesting point. My mother was a nurse, an ER nurse for 50 years, and she worked full time. And in her spare time, she worked at a nursing home, her spare time. I was a latchkey kid. She never had any spare time. She always was working 2 jobs, but she worked at a nursing home. And I asked her, she's 89 years old now. And I asked her a couple of weeks ago, I said, so Mom, when you were working in the nursing home, and she actually worked at a couple of different ones, I said, how many people had dementia or Alzheimer's while you were working? I said, because I just don't remember it being that big of a deal then. And she said it was about 10% of the people that she cared for. About 10% were in in nursing homes and had dementia. They didn't even have Alzheimer's. It wasn't diagnosed back then. And I said, well, what is it today? Because she still has friends in the nursing industry and the home health care and that. And she said it's over 50% is what she's guessing it would be. So even though we may have a longer life expectancy, that quality of life isn't necessarily reflective of longevity, right? And sadly, women experience dementia and Alzheimer's at twice the rate of men, and it's about 10% of the population that does experience dementia or Alzheimer's. And one of the elevated exacerbating symptoms is stress. And so there are lots of different ideas of why we've got this surge. Number one, people are living longer. That's the first indication because it's an age-related disease. So, but what could we do in the meantime? What should we be on alert for, right? Because I want to keep my mind. I don't mind being old, but I want to have my memories. I want to remember being young, at least. I want to remember my kids, and I want to remember my spouse, and those things are important. Which brings me to point 2, which is diet. If we want to run at maximum performance, we have to be. What fuel we put in our bodies matters, right? We don't put diesel in a gasoline engine. And if anyone's ever done that, or somebody who has, it has detrimental, drastic, long-lasting bad effects, okay? We have to put the right kind of fuel in our bodies, and we need to be conscious of that. And Jim, I know that you and the other Jim here, Mr. Spilson, you have done 75 hard. Rachel, 75 hard. I was on a beta program almost a few years ago now called 180. And it was a detox and weight loss program. And I'd gotten myself, my prime weight is sitting about 162. 162 to 164 is where I should be. And I was in the mid 180s. All right. And I thought, well, I'll try something different. And I did a complete detox, no sugar, no alcohol, and this is the big one, no processed food at all. And after 30 days, let me tell you what, your mind is clear and the body has drastic changes. So I know what it's like to do a cleanse. And there are lots of different cleanses out there. If you want to just do a detox, Google it and find something that might work for your lifestyle. I don't think it's a bad idea. It gets you like a restart, like hitting a restart on your computer. But food is your fuel. And they've always said, let food be your medicine. And it is so true. My personal story with this, I'm going to share with you because I've been having to watch my diet because of my wife's diet. She has an autoimmune disease, but she also has a severe allergic reaction to MSG, monosodium glutamate. All right. Now, and by severe reaction, I'm talking constricted airway, can't breathe, emergency room, right? Breathing treatments, the works. I mean, it's just like people with a peanut allergy or seafood allergy. This could kill. And it's MSG. And more people are affected by it than they even realize. And MSG is an excitotoxin. All right. And it's specifically and intentionally put in food so that you will like it, it tastes good, and you will want more of it. Right. And if you've got an MSG allergy, you start looking at food labels. And when I was doing my 180 program, complete shift and body cleanse, and I had to read every label because I couldn't take anything processed, right? It's amazing what's in your food. And if you're not already reading labels, I encourage you to do so. This right here is a list of all the names that MSG goes by. It's not just MSG or monosodium glutamate, yeast extract, calcium caseinate, yeast food, yeast nutrient, gelatin, textured protein, any protein. If it's animal protein, vegetable protein, it has MSG in it. And the list goes on. It's probably 70 or so different things that are actually MSG, but they just call it different things. And they're allowed to do it. You can find that. In fact, Jim, if you'll put this in the chat, truthinlabeling.org. If you really want to know what's in your food and how they get away with putting it in there, go to truthinlabeling.org. I have this on my phone. I have one on the fridge. My wife has one in her phone, and hard copies, because we can't take the chance of putting something like that in her body. I have a slight reaction to it. My ears will turn bright red, and my heart races with MSG. But it's good stuff, right? It's a drug that they can legally put in our food. So watch your processed foods, watch your oils, watch what's going in, just pay attention. And the other thing is, start doing some research on food pyramids. You know, we've all been taught since we were all small kids, we should have X amount of this in grains, and this in carbs, and this in vegetables, and this in fruit, etc. But when you understand how those food pyramids were established, and you wonder why they changed, depends on who is putting more money into the studies. It's really, if they want more, dairy in your diet, it's because the dairy lobby has commissioned more reports to be able to get those things changed at the government level. It's kind of scary, but it's the way things work. But don't be fooled. Part of being a good entrepreneur is doing your homework and doing your research. So when it comes to your own life, your own livelihood, your own health, the health of your family, it's time not to be duped and not just follow the herd. Don't do any different with your life than you do with your business. Always be pushing, always be looking, always be researching. As far as that goes, there are blood type diets. There's a million different diets out there, blood type diets and different dietings and intermittent fasting and the cleanses and all that kind of stuff. You use your judgment with that stuff. I'm one of those that I'm an omnivore. I know that eating more vegetables and fruit is obviously better than just being a carnivore. And my father eventually died of heart disease. He had quadruple bypass, and he refused to change his diet. And he said, if that kills me, well, then that's the way I'll go. And he was right. But we have to be responsible for at least the knowledge of knowing what we choose to do. And there is a difference between, I hate to use the term clean meats and unclean meats, things that are, again, processed in big facilities. Know where your food is sourced. It does make a difference. It makes a difference on the nutrient load. It makes a difference on the chemical load. So be responsible. That's all I'm saying. If you want to put the best fuel in your body and operate 100% or as close to it as you can get, then pay attention to what's going in. All right. And just think twice about it. And it's okay. I mentioned at the beginning of this call, before we recorded, that I'm a sucker for sugar. I am addicted to sugar. I think that's what it is. My body craves what it's addicted to. And I always crave it. I don't care if it's pies, muffins, cake, cookies, candy bars. I'll take it. I'll take it all. I'll take it in little bits. I'll take it in large quantities. I don't care. And I was always able to burn it off. It doesn't mean it's good for me, right? It doesn't mean it's good for me. So be thinking about that. Now, the next thing, and this is where I'm going to tie this into the dementia Alzheimer's thing. Why do we have such a large increase besides people living longer and their age-related diseases? There has to be a relationship to diet and or inoculations. Something is being done, or environmental. Could be environmental factors as well. Whether it's air pollution, water pollution, combination of all of these things, and it probably is it's never one thing, probably a combination of all of it. But if you want to be of sound mind when you're still healthy and physically fit at 80, and I believe that's possible, then watching what we eat is of utmost importance. Absolutely utmost importance. Caffeine. When I was 40 years old, I developed a heart arrhythmia. Anyone ever wake up from a bad dream in the middle of the night and your heart's racing, right? You feel like you're being chased, and you get that feeling. It's just like you're scared, you're on edge. It's the fight or flight, but it's just that way, that real intense moment. Well, imagine that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what a heart arrhythmia was. So my heart would go for 15 beats and then stop, or 7 beats and stop, and skip a couple, just wait a couple of beats, just there was nothing, and then bam, it would hit me with another beat, just like jolting you. So, and that went on for probably a month and a half before I finally thought, this is, something's wrong here. It's not just stress, something's going on here. And, they had all kinds of things that they could have put me on, prescription medications, and I didn't. I went for fish oil, believe it or not. It was just, that's what my body needed, and that corrected it. So I've been on that ever since, and it's not recurred. So when you get hooked onto a Holter monitor and they're monitoring your heart for 24 hours and then going through the EKGs, they start talking to you about all these important things, your diet, caffeine. My doctor told me, because at the time I drank a lot of coffee, and she said, your body can't handle at 40 what it could handle at 20. You might have not ever had a problem eating all that sugar, doing caffeine, all that kind of stuff, because your body, like I started with that first one, it's designed to resist an infinite number of attacks and stresses. But it changes as we age, and we're all aging. I don't care if you're 18 years old on this call or if you're 63. Your body is aging, and stress matters. So number one, it affects you differently. Even if you didn't have a problem with something yesterday, doesn't mean you can't develop a problem for it tomorrow. So just be aware of that. If there are changes going on, don't rule anything out, and start with diet. And the second thing that I learned was that stress, whether it's good stress or bad stress, your body doesn't know the difference. All right. And remember what we talked about here, Alzheimer's, they know that stress elevates and exacerbates the symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's. And if your body doesn't know the difference between good stress and bad stress, we better find a way to find a good balance. And Jim, you're going to be on that topic next week, right? We have to find ways to balance our stress load. And when we've got lots of demands on us, with work, with family, with other projects, and some of us are involved in outside activities and organizations and the political scene and everything else, we have to find a way to really be on top of and manage that stuff. And again, I'm going to say it again. If you need a coach, if you need a counselor, if you need somebody, hire one, because it will ultimately make the difference in your long-term health. Okay? Mental health and physical health. So don't be afraid to ask for help. So next, drugs. We'll talk drugs for a minute. Okay. Prescription drugs, everyone's got their own opinion on this. If your doctor's got you on something, that's all fine and dandy. I'm not going to argue. I'm not a medical practitioner. I just know that there's no possible way that any doctor or pharmaceutical researcher can possibly know all the interactions from different drugs and their combinations. So if you're on one drug and then they put you on another drug for a different symptom, a different disease or whatever, they may have some idea of what kind of counterindications they may experience, but they don't know all of them. My father, before he died, I think was on 15 different prescription medications. Who knows? He just, what does that mean? What does that lab rat look like after those 15 drugs and after 6 years on them? They don't know. And I heard a podcast recently, and they said, when you're looking at those drug interactions and all that stuff, we are the experiment. The people that are being prescribed those drugs are the experiment, because they don't know what's really going to happen in a human body 5, 10, 15 years from now. Maybe that's where the dementia and Alzheimer's coming from, right? All these induced drugs that my mother, for example, was on I can't remember the name and I probably shouldn't say it anyway, but it was a osteoporosis. Again, she was in the medical field and anything a doctor told her she did. No question, no research, nothing. Okay. Well, Lorraine, you're menopausal now. You need to be on, this drug for strengthening your bones. Okay. She's on this prescription drug. She's on this drug for probably 6 years. And all of a sudden she suffers a spontaneous spiral fracture of her femur without doing any. She took a step and had a spontaneous spiral fracture of her femur. Well, guess what? That was one of the possible side effects of this drug that they gave her to keep her bones strong. Is that an irony or what? Well, she was part of a class action lawsuit she will probably never see a penny from, but she did suffer long and hard with a fracture and the healing that went into that. And of course, she was older, so she didn't recover and bounce back quite as fast. So again, we're the experiment. So be careful what you do. Ask your doctor the tough questions and don't just say, well, this is what we're doing next. You're responsible for your own health, and I'm encouraging you to stand up and ask the questions, not just for yourself, for the rest of your family. You owe it to yourself for your long-term health. I'd like to see you be around as long as possible. So that's prescription drugs. That's all I'm going to say about that. Recreational drugs, marijuana has been legalized across the country. And whatever your feelings are with that, I know that marijuana, cannabis, has medicinal value. There's absolutely no question about that. I also know that you can get the medicinal quality from cannabis without the THC psychoactive ingredient. So try that first. I mean, if I know that it works for many, many maladies, I absolutely and positively, I've looked at the reports, the studies, I'm involved in that industry, and you don't have to have THC for the active ingredients that heal to work. So don't use that as an excuse, and the long-term effects on brain health for kids and all that kind of stuff. I think we're walking down a dangerous path. That's my own personal opinion. Do your research. And tobacco, chewing tobacco, regular tobacco. I think on this show before I've talked about, I used to be a smoker, kicked that habit. They say it's as addictive as heroin. Probably is. I've never done heroin, but I won't smoke again. And who knows what effects, long-lasting effects that's had on me. So far, nothing. But you can kick a bad habit. I don't care what it is. It is mindset. And I absolutely and positively, anybody is a smoker, has a smoker in your family, you want to reach out and say, how did you quit? Message me, call me. I'll be glad to talk to you. Alcohol, Jim, you talked about this earlier. The guidelines are 3 drinks per week, and it's less if you're a female, and binge drinking is considered, I think, like 4 drinks for a man in one sitting, and 3 drinks for a woman in one sitting is considered a binge drinker. So just be aware of what you're putting in your body. It's a foreign substance. It's alcohol. It's poison. And we all like it. We like the flavor. I like the effects. I like the smooth out. It's a depressant. We need to remember that. And I just say anything in moderation. How about that? Just don't get to the point where you're addicted to it or you're using it for the wrong reasons. The body is resilient up to a point. So again, you cannot operate at 100% if you're ingesting toxins. Okay. So just be aware. How's that? Vices. This is a fun one. Addictions. I'm going to talk about addictions because part of the stress factor is part of our addictions. And it could be watching shows that get our heart rate up, right? It can be adventure shows. It can be, the John Wick. I'm a John Wick fan, right? It can be the go hunt 'em, get 'em shows. It gets your heart rate going. Well, guess what? That is a stress that we find titillating, and yet our body can't tell the difference that we're being chased or someone else is being chased. So monitor your television, sports, and the gamers and that sort of thing. it's stress on the body. Even though they enjoy doing it, getting involved, getting their adrenaline up, still fight or flight, it's stress on the body. So being addicted to those sorts of things is a vice. All right. And that's why it's so important for us to minimize that sort of thing in our own lives and in the lives of our children and people that we can influence, because it is a stress, and stress eventually is going to build up. Might be another part of the thing, not just what they're watching, but just what they're doing. Recreation. I used to be a real risk taker, from spelunking and rock climbing and downhill skiing. And I kind of eased up when I had kids. I just wanted to be more responsible. I didn't want to go out and kill myself. And when I didn't have anyone depending on me, it didn't matter so much. But just remember that those can become addictions. You know, your outdoor activities and hobbies can become addictive if it's interfering with your work, your family, or you're getting too much stress, even from the enjoyment. Risky behavior. There are thrill seekers out there, speeders. I know some people. I've got a son who likes to go fast. And the other thing is, just if you're going to be on that risky thing, at least take the precautions, use appropriate safety gear, you know, and don't take unnecessary risks, and don't put anyone else at risk. That's just good, solid advice. Ultimately, I'm saying this: who is in control? You have to be in control of your own health. What goes into your body, what you do with your body, what you are exposing your body to, it all makes a difference. It makes a difference. And I'm telling you, when you wake up in the morning and you're excited to go to work, and you're feeling good about work, and your mind is mentally aware, and you're aware of everything that's out there on the playing field, you feel better, and you will perform at a higher level, and your business will prosper at a greater level. That's why this is important. So that's my soapbox for the night. Comments? Jim, I know you've got plenty to say because you're the expert on the physical portion of this as well as others. So I'll start there.
Yeah, you know what's funny, Rod, is that it's easy to get lost in the discussion tonight because we all think we know what's best for our bodies. We all have our ailments or things that we reach for, like the sugar or the alcohol or the cannabis or whatever it is. So it's easy to kind of tune out or come and go and go, okay, why is this relevant to me and business or the job that I'm doing? Isn't this an entrepreneurial class, right? Isn't that what we're here for? But there's a direct correlation between your health and your success. And I'll speak firsthand. I know in the last 64 days, I've become a better entrepreneur because of my 75 Hard program. And I also know that 65 days ago, I was enjoying a cocktail, at the end of my day, which made me wake up a little bit later the next day, and my days started shrinking because of my vices, right? Or I get to my computer and 2 hours in, all of a sudden I'm tired, or I'm looking for a snack, or, I just don't have the energy that I had when I was working out consistently. So the things that you talked about tonight are so critically important to our success. And what we forget is, by the way, I posted something on Instagram a couple days ago, and it was basically something that I got from the First Forum page. I'm going to read it real fast. This is, with all the madness going on in the world right now, it's more important than ever to control the stuff you actually have control over. One day you'll wish you did, right? And I had somebody comment, and it's a fair comment, and he's a believer. He says, look, I turned my life over to God. Well, that's great, but God also asks us to act and work and try and all these other things, right? And I think the point of this message really that resonated with me is we can control what we put in our bodies. We can control the food, we can control the drink, we can control the smoke or the tobacco or the pills or whatever it is. And we can also control our physical fitness level, right? And so by focusing on what we can control, it reduces the things that we can't, and it gives us more strength and endurance to go through those things. So I love the topic. It's important. Many people don't think about it, but I don't know too many really successful people that don't make health or meditation or a good diet a part of what their regimen is to be successful, right? And yes, there's some anomalies, but they're not too often, because most successful people I know do have some kind of health regimen. There's a couple other things I want to play off this while the ones that are here tonight gather up their questions. And, you know, I've been thinking a lot about being an entrepreneur and what that means to people. And I'm on a, man, I think I've read 8 books already in my 64 days of 75 hard. I've gone well beyond the 10 pages of mandatory reading, but it's amazing how much content you can take in through good books when you're looking for a change or you're looking for nuggets. And one of the things I was reading recently about being an entrepreneur is if you're serious about that or serious about working for somebody else, I know we've got some entrepreneurs on the call, is you want to be where the fire burns the hottest. Go after that job, go after your success, go after being the best employee that you could possibly be for that person that's given you a chance to work for them. If you're an entrepreneur, go where the fire burns the hottest, lead the charge, be there on the front lines. I think oftentimes we sit back and allow things to transpire without us being on the front lines. I want to see a lot more of that. I know I feel that way and continually need that reminder, like, where do I sit in my endeavors? Am I on the front lines or can I move a little bit further to the front, right? And, you know, when you're an entrepreneur or when you're a successful entrepreneur, you know, that success is earned, you know, using the fire reference, it's earned by blood and fire, you know, getting out there and having that passion and sweat and hard work, you know, burning the soles in your shoes. So I just want this to serve as a little bit of a reminder of not only should we be focused on our health, our diet, and our elements, but use that new good health and strength to go after the success that you want in your careers or in your business endeavors. And this is the quote that I pulled out of the book. It's a little extreme, but have faith of a suicide bomber in what you do, right? Have faith of a suicide bomber in what you do, right? Imagine that, right? That's his job. He's got a lot of faith that he's going to see the 1,000 gods or princesses or whatever they're told they get, you know, but having that type of faith in your own abilities and your skill set and the job that you've been given or the opportunities, wouldn't that be incredible if we all did a little bit more of that? So anyways, that's my 2 cents on what you said. I probably have a lot more to say, but we'll give an opportunity for some of the others to talk.
Thanks. I appreciate that input. The other thing, Jim, is it never ceases to amaze me how one little change can start a whole cascade of other change. You know, that's probably one of the best. It may just be one little thing in your diet that can make you feel a little bit better, so you try something else and you start pushing in, start leaning into the fire, right? You start leaning into that fire.
You know, one thing I wanted to say too about good health, you know, you talked about mortality rates, great research on that, Rod, is if we're living longer, that means our retirement accounts need to last longer. And I guarantee if you do the research on that, people are running low on funds later in life because Social Security wasn't set up for you to live beyond 62, 63 years old. So when we're starting living in our 70s and 80s, I mean, I've got a client, he's 96 years old. I mean, come on, are we preparing for that? So whether you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, you need to think about that as well. So good health, as well as having a solid business plan and mindset and some programs to save and be prepared to live longer too. So gather those skills, you know, they're going to need to last you a while. And I know some of us on the call are in transition. We're all young enough to have a lot of years, working years left to see those successes and put away for the future.
You know, the other thing is I don't think we've seen the cap out of how long good, healthy lifestyle can get us. I plan on living to 100, and I plan on being mentally and physically fit to enjoy 100. I want to be like Moses, who, what I think it was 110 or 120, he hiked to the top of a mountain, gave a great big speech that, you know, is, you know, the Song of Moses. And then he laid down and said, God, take me home, right? I want to be like that. I want to have the mental clarity. I still want to have my faculties. I want to be able to hike up a mountain and lay down and say, okay, I'm ready. you know, and I don't see any reason why not. I meet people every day that are my age and they look 10 years older and they walk 10 years older or more. And that's, I'm not arrogant about that, but it makes me feel good that I started paying attention because of a heart scare, 23 years ago to my health in a much more intentional way. And it's put me ahead of a whole lot of people. Now look at people in my graduating class, and there are probably 6 of them dead already. And, from things that they shouldn't have been, in my opinion, So anyway, you're right, Jim. If we're going to live longer, we better be able to enjoy it, and we better be able to afford to live longer.
Yeah. Rachel put in the notes about, managing stress through meditation, breathe work, and stuff like that. Next week's call is on personal growth through prayer, meditation, visualization, and believing. So I'll be talking on that a little bit. And Rachel, maybe you can be here to weigh in on that. I know you're listening in tonight, so thank you for your comments. These are important factors of success. Again, I can attest to it, especially more so now that I'm wrapping up this 75 hard program here in the next week. And, food, that's not only an important factor of your life, but that'll give you the fuel to get through your day. So, I would encourage everybody to look at what their diets are, what it consists of, to have the strength and energy to get through a successful day and be of value, not only to yourself, but to your employer or your business that you started and your customers. We take it for granted too often, and we're not the best versions of ourselves. And I think we owe that to our businesses and the people that have hired us.
Yeah. Thanks. So does anyone have any questions outside of the realm of tonight's topic? Raise your hand if you do. If not, I've got something else I do want to, it's kind of been on my heart for the last week, and I'll speak on that briefly before anybody else. Anything at all? Inside sales, outside sales.
You're up, Rod.
Starting a business.
Go again.
How's your nose, Rod?
What's that?
How's your nose?
It's almost healed. I had a black eye and a big, and my glasses were completely destroyed. But these are new, so they're, I got them out of the deal. It's still sore. It's going to have a another scar on it. It's not been whacked and broken, so I feel better about it. But again, the lesson in that was listen in everything, right, Jim? In everything. And there's stored energy, latent energy. I remembered this from high school, believe it or not, when this trim under pressure busted me in the face. And it was a big one, too, about that big around. The part that got me. The other part was about this big around, and that was where the energy was stored. But we all have latent energy. We have power stored inside of us. And sometimes I was using a handsaw, and it released this energy, and the backlash was immense and severe, but it was stored up energy that became kinetic energy. And that's our goal with all of you and with ourselves, is to take that latent energy that we have, give you one tool that will release that energy into movement, into motion, into power. That's our goal. And it might be just one little thing, but it can make all the difference. And sometimes it's a handsaw, sometimes it's an axe, sometimes it's a termite. One never knows, right? So we have to find the right tool to unlock our greatest potential. That was the lesson from getting smacked in the face, right? So I did use it as a learning thing. And by the way, for those of you who I know, somebody got my Fight Club reference, and I asked Jim, I said, well, you know what the first rule of Fight Club is? So anyone who hasn't seen the movie, I'll tell you the first rule of Fight Club is nobody talks about Fight Club, right? You keep it a secret. You don't want people to know how you got beat up, right? So I broke the first rule because it wasn't really a fight. So what I want to talk to you tonight for the last few minutes, unless someone else has questions, I'll stay on long as you want. I want to talk about work being fun. You know, I'm looking at our curriculum, and I mean, we're pretty solid. Jim and I are focused, and we want to bring something every week, and we want it to be relevant. We want it to be useful. We want it to be something you can remember and take home and apply. And that requires, you know, some, especially the way we do it, a little Socratic teaching. You know, we're up here giving it to you, and we're expecting you to pick pieces up. And it tends to be, I don't know, mundane, one-sided almost. And I told Jim, I said, I like business. Business is fun to me. Every job I've ever had, I've found a way to make it fun. And it never became a drudgery. And I've worked with people before that, oh, another day at the salt mine. You know, I got to go in and put in my time. I've got to go, you know, work for the man. I've never had that attitude. And work should be fun. It should be enjoyable. We should find a way to embrace that. And I know I talked about work before and making friends with the calluses and the sweat, but make it fun. Work is fun. Being an entrepreneur is fun. We just have to find those triggers that inspire us, that get us a little closer to the flame and burn it a little bit hotter. But everything I've got like 6 different things going right now, and I'm having fun with all of them. It's got to be fun, and get yourself a fun spot sooner rather than later. There's that learning curve that's always, you know, kind of nerve-wracking, and you got to take new tests and learn new things, but even find a way to embrace that. And when it's fun, it becomes easier, and it makes taking on new challenges easier as well. So crack that door open, but remember, it's not all, oh, I gotta, you know, go after it and, you know, wrestle the tiger and tear its liver out and eat its heart. No, man, play with the kitty. You know, it doesn't have to be brutal. So I want to leave it on that note for my end tonight. Questions, comments? Cat got your tongue? See, that was funny.
Rod, I think we're good, man. Let's
right.
get after it. Let's get healthy. Let's go have some fun doing our jobs and the work that we're signed up for.
And happy Thanksgiving. You got a great excuse to indulge, right?
Just a little bit.
Overindulge. All right, everybody, thank you very much. If you've
Happy
got questions
Thanksgiving, all.
anytime, email us.